Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm sure we still have a few people joining us, but it's time for us to get started. My name is Tim Kelly. I'm an executive director here at athenaHealth, and I want to welcome everyone for coming to our presentation today here. And if I can advance the slides, that would probably help. Hey, Nikki, I'm not able to advance the slide. Thank you. All right. So today you're all here. Everyone on the phone here is an athenaPractice customer, and you're all here because you want to learn a little bit more about athenaOne. Some of you are at different phases of that, journey, if you will. Some of you have just started it. Some of you are further away down the road, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to take about, I'll walk you through the agenda in just one second here. But first, the first thing I want to do is, again, welcome you. Thank you for taking your time to be with us. But actually, really the most important thing is to thank you all for being customers. You've all been customers for a number of years, and we really appreciate that. And as you look at this potential move, we want you to know the most important thing for us is we want to help. We want you to remain a customer, whether it's on athenaPractice or whether you make the decision to move to athenaOne. Thank you. So here's what we're going to cover today. So I'm going to kick us off with just a little sort of table setting, if you will, on athenaOne. And then we're going to get into really the heart of the matter. What I think most of you are here for is to hear from some of our customers. So I'll turn things over to Ken Getz, who's our VP of Customer Success. And he's got Megan Carrick from Virginia Urology and Kaylee Meadows from Anderson Hills Pediatrics. And they are both athenaOne customers who converted over from athenaPractice. So you're going to get to hear sort of the story from them about how they made the decision, how they went through the onboarding, what it's been like since then, et cetera, et cetera. So be about 45 minutes of that. You'll get to really hear from them about their experiences. For those who want to stay for a little bit longer after that, we're going to do a demo scheduled for about 30 minutes afterwards. So hopefully everybody wants to stay, but if you can't, we certainly understand. Can you move to the next one, Nikki? Thanks. So also we're taking questions throughout. So a couple things. As we're going through all this process, if you have a question and you want to just hit that Q&A button, and you can post your question in there, and we'll take a look at it behind the scenes and try to work it into the equation. When we get towards the end of the presentation, the conversation with our customers, we'll have the opportunity for you also to ask some questions, and also during the demo, be able to use that raise hand feature to say, hey, I want to ask a question, and then we can engage with a live question if that's something that you'd like to do. All right. Next, please, Nikki. Thank you. All right. So let's jump into things. If you can keep going, Nikki. So as I have talked to groups all across the country, and I talked to them about sort of what are the challenges that they're experiencing, which I imagine a lot of this is going to resonate with all of you. And these are the four sort of big things that come up to me. The first one is that, if you think back and if you look at me, you can probably tell I've been doing this for a while. And I think back to my early days in healthcare IT when, all we have is practice management systems, right? Then EMRs came along and patient portals and EDI and et cetera, right? And there's all these different systems that many of you have to sort of figure out, do I want this system? Do I need this system? Can I afford this system? Which one should I get? How do I negotiate a contract? How do I make sure they're all integrated together and stay working together over time? And how do I afford all this, right? So there's a lot of overwhelming of I need all these third-party different things to sort of Frankenstein on to make work. And that's a challenge that many practices experience. The other day, I was presenting to a group of actually on our CSM team that was younger folks, let's just say, and it occurred to me that they may have never actually even seen a fax machine, and I thought of that because fax machines are still alive and well in healthcare, right? And so to the point of manual work is still a huge burden on your staff and your providers. All the things that they have to do, whether it's managing that fax machine and having to get results into the record where it needs to go, right? All these things get in the way of the things that they really want to do, what you really want to accomplish as an organization, providing great care and growing your business. To that token, we've been talking about burnout for the longest time here. Staff burnout from a lot of the things we just talked about and all the work that they have to do, and providers. And let's be clear, docs, generally speaking, all providers really don't like their EMRs, right? It gets in the way of that one-on-one conversation they want to have with their patients. That's what they really want to do. And between that and all the work they have to do in their pajamas at night, et cetera, causes a lot of burnout from providers and staff. And then lastly, you're getting squeezed, really in three different directions, right? You're getting downward pressure on reimbursement that continues. You're getting upward pressure on costs. It's a really bad math equation right there when those are going towards each other. And then sort of there's that hangover, I guess I'll call it, from COVID with staffing, right? Where many of you still struggle to hire and retain really good staff. And so these four things are the things that I hear a lot about that are going on throughout healthcare across the country. And they're things that athenaOne can really address. So let's talk about those for a second here. Thank you, Nikki. So the beauty of athenaOne is that it is a single system. Now, I'm not trying to say that it's everything that you could possibly ever want, but it's the core things that you need and do all contained in a single system. There's the revenue cycle, obviously, the EMR, the clinical experience, and then also patient engagement, right? All in a single system, developed to be a single system. And by the way, in a SaaS-based platform, and when we say that, it's a term that gets, I'm going to call it misused, same as cloud-based gets misused. In fact, I often think that when new technologies come along, vendors become what I call buzzword compliant, right? Their product doesn't necessarily change, but what they call their product or how they call their product does change over time, right? But athenaOne is a truly, single instance multi-tenant platform where everybody's on the same instance of software. You don't have to worry about upgrades. You're always current, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a huge advantage to that. And the fact that it's all within one system, all three of these components. You go next, Nikki. Thanks. All right. So I'm going to ask a provocative question here for you that you may wonder why the heck I'm asking this, which is, should LeBron James mow his own lawn? Now, the reason I'm asking this is because it talks about an economic principle that I think is really important, something called comparative advantage. So this, by the way, is actually LeBron James. He is on a lawnmower with some commercial that he was in. And so the hypothetical here is LeBron mows his lawn. He's good at it and he likes to do it. And he could do it, his ginormous estate, in, let's say, an hour, right? But his other option is he could hire little Susie down the street to mow the lawn. Now, she doesn't do it as fast as LeBron. It takes her 2 hours, and she charges LeBron $20 an hour. So it's going to cost him $40 to have Susie mow the lawn. Now, if I were to ask my 96-year-old father who grew up in the Depression which option he should go with, he would, of course, say that he should mow his own lawn and keep the $40. But if you think about this a little more carefully, what are LeBron's comparative advantages in life here, or in how he earns a living, if you will, right? He is obviously one of the greatest basketball players of all time, and he's also a celebrity. So instead of taking that hour to mow his lawn and save the $40, he could be making a Nike commercial, let's say, and pocketing $1 million. He could be honing his skills as a basketball player, because at this rate, I think he's going to play forever, right? And so he could get a better contract in the future. So the whole point is he can focus on what his comparative advantage is and let Susie mow the lawn in the same way that we, as with athenaOne, want you all to focus on your comparative advantage, what's important to you, your vision, your mission, et cetera, what differentiates you out there, and let us mow your lawn, if you will, by taking up some of the work that isn't focused, isn't necessary to you being successful. All right, go next, Nikki, please. So by now you're probably thinking, let's see, we're about 4 minutes into this or so. I think a little bit more than that, a few more minutes into this, and you're wondering, wow, he finally brought up AI. And probably every presentation you're seeing today that has anything to do with technology probably starts with AI, right? And the reason for that is AI is, to me, we look at AI in a much more holistic way. Again, everybody talks about, AI-powered EMRs. It's the same EMR they had. They just, are calling it something different to some degree. We've been doing AI, quite frankly, for over a decade, right? That whole thing I was talking about with document management, we've been taking over documents, managing documents for our customers for over a decade, taking those documents and making them electronic and putting them in the chart for the person and using technology to do that. And for sure, with the advances of AI that are happening right now, this is going to accelerate dramatically over the next year to two and beyond. So we think of using AI more as a tool than as a sort of a of a product, if you will. So we use AI to help create greater efficiencies, like those document management as an example I gave you, and reduce work of your staff. We use AI to help provide better information at the right place for your staff. We use it to enhance the experience for your docs, your providers, and your staff, as well as your patients, which is really important. And then, of course, for revenue enhancement, we've had a rules engine for more than 2 decades right now that helps our customers ensure that they reduce denials as much as possible. And AI is one of these things that's going to fit like hand in glove in terms of what we're going to be doing and accelerating our ability to automate that process going forward. Next, please, Nikki. And so just sort of putting it together in terms of AI, really what we're focused on is, transforming that revenue cycle to improve the quality, but also reduce your work. Our Chief Product Officer, Paul Bryant, he tracks the work that our customers do versus the work that we do, et cetera. He has very specific goals about reducing that work of our customers and getting it down as close as he can to zero. Again, we want to delight clinicians, get back to the point of where you can, walk into a room and just have a conversation with a patient and really focus on their care, not have to focus on something else. And again, delighting patients, that stickiness with patients is really important. And they're all used to, using their phones, if you can see mine here, to do just about everything. And that's an example of the capabilities you need to be able to present to them to keep them close to you and sticky and remain as patients. Next one, please. And so last thing for me before I turn things over to Ken is, again, I want to thank everybody for being a customer. And because you're a customer, we put together a program. It's one of the things I do and manage here is to make sure that if you want to make that move to athenaOne, we're going to make it as easy as we possibly can for you. So first of all, we would provide pricing to you that's sub-market that we would not provide to anyone who is not a customer. Secondly, we do everything we can to lower those transition costs. We know that no matter what, whether it's the check you're writing potentially for certain things in a transition, or the fact that you maybe have to reduce staff for a little bit, or just generally all the work that goes into moving to a new system, there's some costs involved. So we do everything we can to sort of reduce those costs from us to make it really simple for you, and easier, I should say, to move on to athenaOne. And because these are both of our systems, we know both systems well. We know the data really well. We've gotten really, really good at moving the data from one system to the other that makes sure that we get that data across and can do it in a more efficient and effective way. All right. With that, Nikki, if you can bring up one more slide, and I'm going to now turn things over to Ken. Ken Getz, our VP of Customer Success, who is going to take it away, introduce our panel, and we'll go from there. Thanks, Ken.
All right, great. Thanks, Tim. And I am thrilled to be here today. Thanks, everyone, for joining. As Tim mentioned, my name is Ken Getz, and I have the privilege of running customer success here at athenaHealth. And I can say with a lot of authority that we absolutely obsess over our customers. And a great example of that, and one of the things I think that makes Athena really special in our industry, is that every single client at Athena gets a customer success manager, regardless of their size. And those CSMs, they work tirelessly to help their customers adopt Athena, optimize Athena, and more importantly, to ensure our clients are getting the return on the investment that they've made in our software and services. We have some fantastic guests joining us today for our customer panel. As Tim mentioned, Megan Carrick, Director of Administrative Operations at Virginia Urology, and Kaylee Meadows, Practice Administrator from Anderson Hills Pediatrics. Thank you, Megan and Kaylee, for joining us today. Before we begin with all of the questions, we would like to just take a moment to learn more about you and your practice. So maybe we can start with you, Kaylee. Could you please tell us about your role, your background, your practice, and how long have you been on athenaOne?
Sure. Hi, my name is Kaylee Meadows. I'm the Practice Administrator for Anderson Hills Pediatrics. We are a 2-location pediatric group in the Cincinnati area. We have pediatricians, a dietitian, behavioral health therapists, and also lactation services as well. We transitioned over to Athena in 2021, so we were a little bit crazy and kind of took on this project right as COVID was in its height and coming down just a little bit. But my history before joining this practice had been mostly working with large health systems. And in my tenure, I think this was the 3rd practice that I transitioned EMRs with. And I think you'll hear it throughout today, but certainly one of the easiest ones to make.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Before we move on to Megan, Kaylee, can you just maybe share with us something about your practice that makes it unique?
Sure. So I would say about 80% of our team is cross-trained into at least one other role. And most of our team rotates between both of our locations, and we do that to meet the needs of our patients and have a little bit more flexibility being a smaller group, but also because we wanted to keep our culture consistent so that our patients always have the same look and feel, regardless of where they go. Where that presents some unique challenges where athenaOne's concerned is that our team members have to know multiple roles and have access to multiple locations. And so definitely something that we had to consider as we went through the build process and even as we make changes today.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Kaylee. And Megan, welcome. Please share a little bit about yourself, your background, and your practice, and how long have you been on athenaOne?
Well, my name is Megan Carrick. I'm the Director of Administrative Operations at Virginia Urology. I've been in healthcare for about 20 years. I've been with Virginia Urology for about 10 years, in all different aspects of operations. We are a large group with 40 urologists, and then we have subspecialties as well. We have urogynecology, radiology, radiation oncology, and medical oncology, and physical therapy. We've been on athenaOne a little over a year, so it's fresh in my mind, the transition process, and what we went through to get to this point, and the accomplishments that we feel like we've made with moving over.
That's great. I'm sure we'll tap into those fresh memories that you have over the course of this Q&A. What would you say makes your practice unique?
We have, in addition to our 7 locations in Central Virginia, we also have our own ambulatory surgery center, plus advanced imaging on 2 sites. So we do PET CT, MRI, CT, ultrasound for our patients as well. So we try to be a one-stop shop. We kind of try to handle everything here at Virginia Urology.
That's great. Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we have a launch of ASC planned within athenaOne later this year. We do support it now, but we have sort of an official marketing launch later this year, which we're looking forward to. All right, well, I'd like to pivot into some of the different areas of interest. I think the first step would be the whole sort of decision-making conversion process at a high level. Megan, we'll start with you. What were the driving forces behind your decision to change systems, and how did you go about doing that? Was it a formal process? Did you look at other vendors?
So we were on athenaPractice for a long time. It required a lot of manual work from our IT department. And we've had a lot of people that have been here that are at retirement age. And we knew we were losing a lot of institutional knowledge with being able to maintain athenaPractice. We knew we needed to make a change. We felt like we needed that, I guess, a little bit more modernness to what we were doing. We did demo other vendors. We talked to other clients, both with athenaOne and other vendors that were similar in size to us and also what we offer, and being kind of a specialist group with subspecialties. We had a lot of vendors, and one of our big things was that we wanted to condense vendors. Me personally, that drove me absolutely nuts, having to coordinate with multiple vendors. We did of course, we did a pro forma just to see what we expected to see with our switch to athenaOne, our cost savings, increased revenue, our return on investment.
Yeah, that sounds like a great approach. And I would just add that I agree completely. And it's a common complaint that I've heard from others in similar situations of all the different vendors they have to bring together in order to create a solution that works end to end, right? So investing in a platform that already has as much native technology as possible is definitely a huge advantage. Kaylee, similar question for you. Why did you look at making the change?
And I think I can echo so much of what Megan shared. And whenever Tim was explaining it earlier, he mentioned the Frankenstein system. And so that wasn't the driver from our perspective, but it was one of the pieces that we valued as we were determining which vendor, which EMR would be best for our practice. So Similar to Megan, we were losing institutional knowledge. I specifically had one physician who had customized athenaPractice to a T, and was retiring. And so we were trying to figure out what would we do with that transition. And then also from a technical perspective, we had servers coming to end of life and thought this seems like an outdated model. We should be moving more to the cloud-based approach. And so that was a big piece as well, just the retirement and then the need for either a server replacement or to jump into a cloud-based world kind of nudged us in a different direction and ultimately landed us here.
Yeah, the cloud-based multi-tenant sort of framework and environment is, I think, prompted a lot of similar practices to make that same decision. Maybe we can talk just a little bit about your partnership with Athena during the process. So, Megan, let's talk about onboarding. How did our teams collaborate with you ahead of go live and during the whole sort of implementation process? What worked well in onboarding and maybe what didn't work so well?
So I do feel like just from the start, the onboarding team comes out and they visit you on site for a couple of days, and they kind of get to see your craziness. They get to see your workflows. How do you work through the office? What are your front desk teams doing? What are your physicians doing? What are your clinical teams doing? So they shadowed, and I felt like that was extremely helpful. It also, for me, it gave us an opportunity to really kind of connect on a personal level, and put a face with a name. I mean, obviously we have video chat and all kinds of things, but it was nice to meet our team and know that, okay, these are the people you're going to be working with for the next, however many months. athenaOne sets up weekly calls and work streams that you kind of don't know at the beginning what you're getting into with those, but they become extremely helpful. You rely on them. I know that anything that we were tasked with doing in between those workflows or calls, we would come the next week with our questions if we didn't understand something. They walked us through any task or component of the project that we had any questions on. One thing that I do think in hindsight that would have been really helpful is for us to have done a deep dive in our workflows prior to starting the project, because it really kind of brings to light some of the what doesn't work. And I think had we been a little bit better prepared going into it, I think we would have had a better understanding. So I think having those checklists of important workflows to your practice is helpful.
Yeah, I completely agree. A successful go live is going to require marrying up the people, the process, and the technology together, right? So that's actually a fabulous recommendation. Megan, there's always going to be some sort of functionality that doesn't exist in whatever new system you're moving to. So how did you manage through that with your staff and providers?
We were very transparent. Providers in our group are very vocal. So we just acknowledged that, yes, there is going to be a change. It's not going to look the same. And, there are going to be changes in workflows. But, we're here to make that happen. We did ask providers to give us like their big ticket things that they were worried about so that we knew where we really needed to focus on, make sure we had, excellent communication to them about changes and things that were going to change in their daily workflow. And also then just focusing on the things that we were going to gain with the new system speed, faster documentation, just streamlined workflows, all of the things that, make a little bit of change, that's painful, a lot more manageable.
Yeah, there's definitely some trade-offs, and there's a tendency to focus on maybe some of the gaps and not all the opportunities that come with it. Kaylee, similar sort of question. No one likes change, right? How did you get the staff behind the project, and what kind of a difference did that make? Are there any specific lessons that you learned, or what would you do differently that our audience should keep in mind?
I think we tried to celebrate this from the very beginning. We made a big deal about making one big change. We leaned into the word one a lot, and I love puns, if you ask my team. So we did a lot of punny events, and so we threw parties. We had our team help do a t-shirt design contest to get our patients onto the portal once we went live, and tried to do some fun things that way. But I think the pieces that really drove the engagement and the ownership was calling for super users very early on in the process and making sure that every role was represented as we went through those weekly meetings, and letting them know, hey, maybe these are the pieces that don't work the way that we were used to, but is this going to be better? How can we make that work? Or what adjustments do we need to make? And so I think that not only helped them get more comfortable with the changes that were coming along ahead of time, but also to convince the team that they worked with as well that this isn't quite as scary. When I look back, I think one of the things I wish we had paid a little more attention to is in our early onboarding discussions, athenaOne came to us and asked about our vision for what we expected this transition to be. And I think, echoing some of Megan's sentiment there, we were just like, we just are ready to make this change and accomplish, that server change and get a succession plan in place. But I don't think we spent as much time really driving towards or identifying what that vision would be early on. And so as you get to the tough decision points in the build where things maybe are going to work differently, or you need to redevelop or redesign a workflow, knowing exactly what you want out of the system and how you'd like it to work and leaning back on that vision was really helpful. So,
yeah. And really knowing what your North Star KPI is, right, to help navigate those decisions. That's a great point. Let's pivot a little bit into the post-live experience. So you've gone live, right? And, those of us at Athena, we're here to support our customers. We want to work in partnership to help you find your greatest success. And so I mentioned earlier, customer success managers. We have a lot of resources available to our customers. The CSMs are sort of the quarterback once you're post-live. And so they're very critical to helping you achieve your success. Kaylee, how has your CSM contributed to your practice's success since transitioning to athenaOne? And maybe you can talk about your cadence for calls and in what ways your CSM is proactive and what does that mean for you?
Sure. When I think about Athena as a whole, especially in my position, the level of support we have is, a huge satisfier for us. There are multiple people within our organization, physicians, leadership, who know our CSM's name just because of the relationship that we've built over time. So when we first went live, there was a cadence that was way more frequent, started with daily, moving to weekly, and then eventually shifted to monthly so that we could work out some of those bugs that were happening in the very, very beginning until we could kind of get stabilized. And so I feel like our initial relationship was just damage control, right? What were the things that you didn't foresee before the transition happened, and how do we get past that and develop or design what we need to make things work? And then things transitioned for us into what I felt like was really fun, where we were able to leverage what athenaOne really was for our practice. And so we'd say, hey, here's this feature, reach out to our CSM and say, can you help me brainstorm on how we could implement this? This is what we're looking to accomplish. And our CSM has been fantastic about having those brainstorming sessions with us or connecting us with other practices that might be able to help or other resources within Athena. And then the other part that I think is really great when I think back of our relationship is there was a point in time where our AR started to get astronomically high, which is not common for our practice. And so our CSM brought that to our attention and didn't just say, hey, you have a problem, but actually sat down with us and our billing team and worked through what we needed to do from a workflow perspective to figure out why these issues were occurring and how could we resolve them so that we were in a good place again. So they're not just there when we need the support, but they're also bringing issues or items to our attention whenever we need to address them as well.
And in your CSM may not have mentioned this, but all of our CSMs have dashboards that show the customers that are in their care. And we call it a proactive portfolio view. So they can actually go in and monitor all the different metrics and KPIs relative to your practice's performance and do that in a proactive way. So the idea is to be able to raise things like that in the example you gave, Kaylee, rather than wait for the phone to ring, and say, hey, what's going on? My days in AR are way too high, right? So it's all about proactively attempting to get ahead of problems before you may even notice them in the course of all your vast responsibilities. So Megan, similarly, I'm hoping you can share some specific examples or instances where your CSM has provided support or resources that significantly impacted your operations. And can you tell us also about your overall experience with support, the CSC, the success community?
Sure. So our CSM obviously had athenaPractice experience, which was incredibly helpful because a lot of the terminology from athenaPractice was different than athenaOne. And so when we were talking about workflows and engaging with her on like, well, we used to send a flag, right? She was able to quickly understand what we meant and help us associate what we could be doing in athenaOne. So, I mean, just incredibly helpful. Our calls with her, I always look forward to them because she does bring us a lot of those insights and the reporting. I mean, if we have something that we need, I can just send her a quick email. She's on top of it. She is looking out for things that she thinks will benefit us. She sends, me betas and alphas and betas. She's like, I think you guys would do great with this. I reached out to her just the other day and asked her a handful of questions, and she was on it and just gets those answers to us. If I have a question about how we have something set up, she's always happy to take a look at, something. And she's just very responsive, brings in the right people when she thinks, we need somebody else or other expertise. And I just feel like she's been a great resource to connect me to other people within athenaOne as well. I use a lot of the support that athenaOne provides. The coaching sessions are phenomenal. It's a lot to take on as a practice. And so if all at once you're learning to build new schedules and you've got to create new reports and all kinds of things, we've really engaged in coaching from, patient engagement, the clinical coaching, and the reporting coaching, rev cycle coaching. And actually today I had a question about a schedule builder, and I reached out to our coach and she responded within an hour. It's just kind of amazing that you have a question, you can send your question, and you get a real person who's looking at your table space and answering your question. I love the success community. I love just everything that athenaOne puts at the customer's fingertips. I like to try to do a deep dive and find my own information first, and it's just all there for you.
Yeah, when I think about the support, the word that comes to mind for me is really ecosystem, right? So we have, of course, a support organization we call the CSC, and we have also your CSM, but there's a lot of other resources. You mentioned CATS, our coaching program. We have a great training department that has all kinds of, fabulous materials. So it's a whole ecosystem of support. And one of those areas of support is our user groups. And so, Megan, tell us, have you been able to take advantage of those user groups?
Yeah, I'm in several. I'm sure people are tired of seeing my name pop up, but they're so helpful. I mean, you get to connect with peers who either have, similar specialties or similar size groups or similar interests, and just being able to listen to either their ideas and ways that they are using the system that you may not have thought about to solve problems that maybe you're experiencing. It's a great way to connect for new things that are being rolled out. Enhanced self-check-in was one of them, and the patient engagement user group, and just being able to talk through workflows and how you're going to put this into place has been so valuable.
And Kaylee, a similar question for you. Tell us about your experience with user groups.
I echo a lot of what Megan shared here as well. I think they're fantastic. And it's, I think there's a cadence of calls that you learn presentations of things that are up and coming or hot topics that maybe that user group could learn from, or there's even just the, hey, let me reach out to any practice within this group and help me figure out how to fix or solve this problem. I think for us, one of the examples that comes to mind of where this has been incredibly valuable is we sat on an Athena Kids call that was about storing a credit card on file. We were struggling at the time with our patients paying their bills timely, and driving up that self-pay balance. And so the presentation was fantastic. The individual who gave that presentation met with us on the side and not only walked through their workflows in more detail, but even shared some of their go live preparation or documents for that transition, and made that way smoother than if we had done it on our own, and took some pressure off our CSM and some of the other pieces of Athena as well, right? But now we see over 80% of our patients coming in have a credit card stored on file, and they don't think twice to something that we felt like was a little bit scary to tackle.
Yeah, that's a great story. Before we get off the topic of customer success manager, I just want to echo something you said earlier about the CSM support, and specifically the fact that we have a CSM who speaks both athenaOne language and athenaPractice language, and we do that by design to ensure that we can be able to speak the language and use the terminology that's reflective of both systems. So that has been a huge help for a lot of customers as they make that transition from, old to new. Let me switch gears again and just I'd like to drill a little bit into your experience on athenaOne. Kaylee, can you share some specific examples of how patient-facing features in athenaOne, like the mobile app or self-scheduling, self-check-in, payments, have improved the patient experience or made things easier for your front office compared to what you had with athenaPractice?
Sure. I think it accomplished both, right? So again, we moved away from the Frankenstein model. All right, our goal was to consolidate down just into athenaOne. And so when I think about my team's perspective, they're no longer toggling in multiple different systems to try to identify and figure out what they need to for our patients, right? Most of what they're doing is in a one-stop shop. We've gained a lot of efficiencies from that, not only in their day-to-day to improve their general satisfaction, but also we found over time as we had staff leaving and just through natural attrition that we didn't need to replace positions in some of the same places we had before, right? So our patients utilize self-scheduling tremendously. I used to have doubled the amount of staff I do now, handling phone calls to schedule those appointments for our patients. On the flip side, our patient population being in the world of pediatrics, our families love to not have to pick up a phone and to do more on their phones, themselves, like on an app or texting or something like that. And so having an app that allows them to pull vaccine records so they can print those before the first day of school, or hop on and schedule an appointment with us overnight because their kid isn't feeling well and they don't have to take a break in their busy work day to try to find some time to call, has been really helpful. And the other piece, so self-check-in is one that we more recently transitioned away from another vendor and moved directly to athenaOne for. And there's a lot of specific customization we can do that fit the needs for our patient population. So I often have the frequent flyers that are coming in often, and I don't have to ask the same questions to them every single time. I also have the mom showing up and bringing all 3 sick kids with her to the visit. And so they don't love answering the same questions 3 times. So being able to adjust and consolidate so that we get the information we need from our families, but do it in a way that's a little more satisfactory for them.
I don't know how you can have it so convenient that all 3 of your kids are sick at the same time. That's probably as much as we hate our children to be sick, right? If they're going to get sick, best to do it all at the same time. So you had mentioned before that you found creative ways to use campaigns. Can you share a few examples of how you use those?
Sure. We use campaigns constantly. So one kind of unique case, we had given out formula samples to several different patients over the course of a couple of weeks that then were recalled. This is a bit ago, but we were able to quickly create a campaign and tag off of our patients that had previously been seen and send out a communication about that recall and potentially impacting them specifically without it requiring much time and effort on our end. One of our pieces as we transition to athenaOne, we have what we call care managers for continuity patients. And so those patients would be, patients with ADHD, anxiety, asthma, depression that need to be seen more frequently or have medications that need to be tracked. And so in Athena, we've created custom fields to identify what those patients are. And we can use that information to generate reports that then trigger campaigns to those patients to let them know if they're due for a medication follow-up, if their physician just wants to touch base on certain questions with them. And that used to be a physical phone call and then letter or email or portal message to our patients. And now by certain individuals, and now that's all automated within Athena, and we can see directly in the record when we've had those communications with them. I mentioned our AR got out of control there for a bit, and those patient self-balances were a little high. Another place that we've used it a little more recently is communicating when a family is about to go to collections and letting them know what the implications of that are, and trying to do that one last chance of collecting a payment for them. And it has been phenomenal, the amount of times they pick up the phone within the first hour of that communication being sent, or immediately reach out or make a payment on the portal so that they're back in good standing with the practice. And then, of course, we use it in the common, it's time for your checkup, you're due for your flu vaccine, and things like that.
Yeah. That's a great example. And you were kind of touching on this, but I would just love to know a little bit more about using AI and if there are any AI tools in athenaOne that have specifically improved the patient or the provider experience and or changed how your staff works day to day.
Sure. I think we probably have some exploring to do on this a little bit further. I know there's some pieces where, Athena's routing fax results in and attaching those to patients' charts and labeling the documents for us. And that's certainly saved our medical records team a lot of time and just manual work that's not a value add for them. More recently, we have started trialing ambient note. I believe you guys are going to go through that during the demo, but utilizing AI essentially as a scribe for the visits. And our physicians that are trialing it have found it's really helpful in the sick visits. For the checkups, it's maybe not working the way that they had hoped or intended. And I think that's in part going back to the go live mentality of what did we create initially in our templates? And is that the right fit still as we adopt and change and evolve with the new technology of Athena? And so the blessing to that now as we're trialing it out is knowing internally how to make those adjustments if we want to change what our templates look like to fit using AI and ambient note. Whereas if I was using athenaPractice, I would probably be panicking a little bit at who was going to help me with this piece.
Megan, I'd love to hear your perspective as well on this. What features within athenaOne have changed the way your staff manage their daily tasks?
I'll echo Kaylee. We have been able to, I say it in the nicest way possible, get rid of vendors. And so staff only having to be in one system, not toggle back and forth between multiple products, make notes in multiple places. It's just kind of a one-stop shop. So that's been hugely impactful for staff. It saves a lot of time. We're a very busy practice, and so every second helps and counts. I think how athenaOne helps to organize your work as well, buckets. Right. So sometimes I think with athenaPractice, you didn't really know what somebody was working on, or where they might have had a folder filled with papers. And now everything is in a bucket and it has a document associated with it. Athena helps you organize documents. It organizes the faxes coming in. And it just, I think, keeps everything really clean. I think during implementation, one of the really important things for us to think about was our TAOs, which I think is another thing that, once you decide to come into the athenaOne world, you just know what that means. But those are the the rules that you set up for documents to route and where they go. And by us being able to do that, it has taken so much guesswork and manual work off of the staff. When they create something or have a document, we just automatically assign it to go where it's supposed to go, which I think helps with, staff turnover or training new people. The system just kind of does what we've programmed it to do, kind of running in the background. So while I think it's more work up front, it pays off on the back end. And really helps be able to your staff to be able to manage their daily tasks better.
And how about reporting?
So I am not an expert in reporting. However, athenaOne has a lot of canned reports that I think are really helpful. And I think the report builder functionality is super helpful and it's so robust. I think it's important to have somebody in your practice that focuses on data and analytics, because I think once you go down the rabbit hole of the reporting, I could spend a whole day building a report out. And then, that's not what I can spend my whole day on. So I think it is important to have somebody on your team that knows that world. Your CSM can also help build reports for you and provide reports on a monthly basis. I rely heavily on those. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. If she has what I need and she can get it to me quickly, that's been super helpful too. But I do think I was blown away the first time I looked into the report builder. I was a little overwhelmed because there's so much data and you can really get anything you need or want. And sometimes, you don't get the data that you were looking for and you have to pivot and make a change. So it's helpful in that aspect too.
All right, great. I'd love to next talk a little bit about results on athenaOne, something very, I think, core to my world, which is, what sort of value are you getting out of the system and what does that look like? And so, Megan, can you share some examples of how athenaOne has led to some improvements in patient care, provider satisfaction, or organizational efficiency?
athenaOne makes everything visible, which can be a double-edged sword. For us, very quickly, our inefficiencies were pointed out. Where we needed to make improvements, how could we utilize the system to make those improvements? Using the tools that they have set up to route documents to make sure that we have alarms set for patient follow-up on labs and results and things of that nature. And we pivoted quickly once we realized, okay, well, we need to be better at this. For provider satisfaction, anything that makes everything faster with fewer clicks is a win for them. We really leaned in heavily to text macros, creating our own order sets that a physician could pick, and it populates everything that they're supposed to order. They're not choosing it. It's already there for them. They click the button and they sign it, and it's there. So we have probably hundreds of order sets for all of the procedures that we perform. Encounter plans have been incredibly helpful. That's helped us create pathways for our APPs. And I think that leads to greater provider satisfaction because they know that patients are getting that continuity of care and getting that pathway care for every single patient, no matter who they're seeing.
And Megan, are there any data points or metrics that illustrate some of these positive changes that you've experienced since adopting athenaOne?
So I am very focused on the operation side of things. I look at the patient digital engagement index quite often. That's been amazing and showing how we've increased our patient digital engagement with enhanced self-check-in, with portal adoption. Our portal usage has gone through the roof. Patients love the portal, the staff loves the portal, and the physicians love the portal. So we have something that all three love, which is kind of amazing. It never happens. And then, we've seen change in just monitoring productivity across the board. I rely heavily on the clinical inbox, which I know is not an official report, but at a high level overview, every day I can see who's doing what they're supposed to be doing and who isn't. And it gives me a quick way to kind of reach out and say, hey, look, I noticed this is going on. What can I do to help? What's going on? Is something wrong? So it's just another way to monitor those, day-to-day functions.
And Kaylee, how does the data that's available in athenaOne support your operations? And can you provide some examples of that?
Sure. I think Megan touched on one of the areas we go into quite a bit, which is the insights dashboard. And I admittedly didn't use this too much in the beginning. It's just as I've gotten more comfortable or learned what we were working towards that it became more and more valuable. So it's broken down into the patient engagement or patient experience side of things that she alluded to. You have the clinical experience, so looking more about your provider time and what they're spending and how much time they're spending where. And then you've got the financial side of things, so how we are doing on the items such as AR or collections or work RVUs. And so those have been really helpful for us to track and monitor how we're doing in different initiatives that we've rolled out over the last 4 years that we've been live on athenaOne. I love the ability to create my own reports. I am a little bit of a data nerd that way. And once you kind of get the groove to it, I can set some to run to my inbox and be there every single day, every week, or once a month. So pieces that we've been really tracking and watching progress on are our patients up to date with their checkups. And I can look at that by provider and by age grouping. We are looking at that time of service collections or card on file agreement, if those have been done and accomplished at the front desk, so we can track towards our goals and celebrate with our teams if and when we're meeting those, which we have been. And then we look really closely at utilization as well. Do we need to make adjustments to our templates? Do we need to adjust our staffing? And so we'll look a week in the rear, a week ahead at our weekly leadership meetings just to see if there are any changes we need to make to prepare for what's happening with our patient population. Is illness hitting more quickly? Are we having a late catch of a bunch of checkups, right before the school season starts or anything like that? So.
You mentioned the Insights Executive Dashboard. One of the things I really like about our philosophy there is it's not just metric delivery. It's not just a bunch of data we throw at you, but rather it's our philosophy is to provide the narratives that go along with it, right? And that helps, I think, practices to be able to get more of a normative view of like, okay, what does this data actually mean and how is it actionable in my practice, right? So that's our philosophy behind those dashboards. It's not just to throw data at you and overwhelm you, but rather to shape the data into a narrative that makes it actionable at the practice level. Megan, switching gears a bit, how do you view the value of the marketplace at a high level? How has the marketplace supported your organization?
I think we don't have many vendors at all. The very few that we do, we've vetted through the marketplace, right? If they're an accelerated partner with athenaOne, I want to know that if we have to engage with somebody, it can be done quickly and they already know athenaOne and have some expertise there. I also look at all of the reviews from existing clients if they're currently using somebody on the marketplace, because people don't hold back. And so I think you get a kind of a true, gauge on satisfaction with those vendors. And, it's also a nice place just to kind of pop in and say, like, what's out there? What ideas are people coming up with? What is something that we're not thinking of? So, I just try to peruse it every now and then, and just another tool.
Yeah, I think we have time for a few more questions before we go to the Q&A. So let me ask you, Kaylee, how has the transition to athenaOne helped address issues of burnout among your staff and providers?
A great question. It's always a hot topic, right? I would be lying if I told you we weren't still burned out in some capacity, or some more than others, right? I think that's the nature of the healthcare beast, especially at this moment in time. But I will say the change has been, the drivers of burnout are not because of documentation specifically, or at least not widely or across the board for everyone. What I loved about this transition for us is we were able to set the parameters and say, this is loosely what we expect to be in every single visit note. But the way that you get there, you have some flexibility with, right? So if you want to utilize ambient note and that makes you happier and you spend less time, go for it. If you are somebody who wants to make sure it says exactly what you want it to say, but you love text macros and we can put those together with you so that you can move through that quickly in your visits and not, type slowly to get everything you need, then let's move forward with that. And I think, as you move during this transition period, as you officially get to the go live phase, there's an opportunity for provider training. And I know it's hard sometimes to get those providers to the table and actually get them to take part in the training, but whenever they do, I think it's been incredibly helpful for them understanding not only how the system works, but how they can leverage it in a way that meets their needs. And the one thing that I remember feeling like we did it was we interviewed a new physician candidate, and the candidate asked which EMR we were on, and the physicians were like gung-ho excited to tell her that we were with athenaOne and like the pieces that they loved about it, and we're selling it to the physician that was interviewing. So that said a lot, I think, to me internally, of like, all right, we made the right decision as we were coming out of that initial onboarding phase.
Yeah, that's a great story. Actually, there's a number of MSO type organizations that this is one of their key differentiators is that, hey, if you're part of our organization, you get to use Athena, and that's a selling point, which is great. Megan, similar question for you on burnout. What specific features or support have you found most effective in reducing the stress and improving the work-life balance for your team?
There's so many things that you can automate with athenaOne that prior to us making that move were manual tasks. Faxing. I think we had a whole department that handled faxes, and now faxes are just automated and they go where they need to go and they have the correct label. So we were able to reallocate those team members to do other tasks. We've automated obviously all of our reminder calls, texts, and emails. We don't have anybody physically doing that or pushing text messages or making phone calls. We automate, when we close a schedule at the last minute, whether it's for physician illness or whether, we're able to close it, push a button, it sends all the messages out to patients, letting them know, we've closed for weather or we've closed because the provider is out unexpectedly. That used to mean hundreds of phone calls, at 7 a.m. going out to patients. So the staff feels so much less stressed now because they're able to focus on the patient in front of them, versus, making all these outgoing phone calls, not reaching patients. athenaOne is going to reach the patient. You're getting a text, an email, and a phone call. So you're going to get that patient, and it's all happening behind the scenes. So I think that's made a huge difference in their workday. And I do feel like they're able to really focus on the patient in front of them, which fills their bucket. They don't want to make phone calls and just do administrative tasks. They want to connect with the patient. So I think that's helped a lot with their happiness in their daily, day-to-day activities.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, thank you both for your thoughtful responses. Please stay with us for just a few more minutes as we shift into our Q&A segment. And Tim, I'll invite you to rejoin us now and help us guide the Q&A.
Look at that. Here I am magically, Ken. Awesome. So great discussion so far. There are a few questions here. And Kaylee, I'm gonna start with you. There's a question here about provider experience. Can you just talk a little bit about, you said your docs loved it and they were selling it to, the new doc, but just expand a little bit more about the provider experience, would you?
Sure. I think when I look back over this started before we made the transition to athenaOne in general. So we were able to meet with another pediatrician who was utilizing the system ahead of time and give them an opportunity to talk through some of the workflows and challenges that they thought this might entail and just get a little more of a real view. As we transitioned to our onboarding phase, again, we had physicians that were very much a key part in what our development and design and workflows looked like. And some of the pieces they were used to doing in athenaPractice certainly changed with athenaOne, some of that for the better and some of that just a little bit of a learning curve. But I had a couple of key stakeholders that were really involved in not only the decisions, but helping with the creation of the templates and how the system worked. And so as we went live, again, those training sessions and spending time one-on-one with the Athena team helped a lot to get some of the physicians over that initial curve of challenge. And then also having a couple of physicians that they trusted internally that they could communicate with helped. I will say most of my physicians will not, or providers don't go reach out to our CSM directly. They're not putting in support tickets. They're, appropriately moving those back to our IT team or bringing the challenges back to leadership. But I do think they very much know that we have support from the CSM, CSC perspective, and they've seen over the last several years requests and changes that they needed to see happen actually come to fruition. So I think all in all, of course, there's some pieces they might like to tweak and change or leverage a little bit differently, but their overall experience, I think, has been really positive.
So it makes a big difference, like you said, when there's things they want to see and they can communicate that to us. And, the high majority of the improvements we make to the product each release are generated from customer request, which is great. So Megan, question for you. The word provider gets thrown around. I'm sorry, provider. The word partner gets thrown around a lot, right? And how do you view, now a year plus into this, your relationship with Athena for athenaOne as a partner and a collaborator?
It's definitely collaborative. athenaOne loves feedback. I was skeptical when we were onboarding and I kept hearing they love feedback. I'm like, okay, nobody really loves feedback. They do. So, they want to work closely with their practices on ideas and workflows and how does this apply in a real life setting in a practice. And I think the more willing you're able to give that feedback and engage with them, ideas are put into play all the time. We've had several things that were big on our radar, and all of a sudden you'll get, an invitation to a beta saying, hey, look, try this out for us. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're just talking about this with them. And so I think they truly do listen, where you all listen and really try to have that partnership where, you want to make it, worthwhile for us to participate and bring ideas to the table and, make our lives easier. And it's just amazing. I do feel more like a partner. And I feel like I do have a voice when I bring things to the table.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Megan. Ken, I got one more question here, and I think this is a good one for you. It's a question asking about how does Athena communicate when new features and functionality are available? How do we make sure that the staff of our customers are well trained?
I love that I get an opportunity to answer a question myself. That's fantastic. Thank you. It's a great question. We release major updates 3 times a year on a very, very predictable triannual schedule. So spring, summer, fall, March, July, and November, respectively, is our rollout sort of cadence. at least 1 month prior to the release of new functionality, we publish something we call the Release Center, and it provides a bunch of in-depth details, video guides, and stuff that talk about all the upcoming changes. It's sortable by staff position, who might, based on how much they might be affected by the change, the products that are being updated, the level of change management or training that might be required for each update. So it's really comprehensive. For the really, really heavy changes that require maybe more change management, we send automated emails to practice staff who have been listed as being responsible for training to make sure that they're aware of upcoming changes and resources that are available. In addition to that, we also, during the releases, we hold release walkthrough webinars to highlight key features that all Athena clients are able to attend and watch on demand. Our CSMs also are provided with training and user guides, which they then can curate and for their clients to share with staff as part of their regular touch points. So that's also something CSMs do. And our user groups will also typically highlight and cover upcoming specialty specific changes and new functionality. Lastly, one really cool thing we do about 10 business days before the release, our clients are able to actually begin testing some of these key features in a preview environment. So they're able to actually ensure that they're comfortable with the changes or even make their own training videos for a more personalized approach for their practice. So there's probably a lot more I could say on that subject, but hopefully that gives a bit of an answer to the question. Tim, I think we just have a few more minutes left before we wrap up. And so maybe I can ask our panelists one last question. And that question is, what is the best advice that you could give to other Athena Practice customers as they consider making this critical change to their business? So Megan, why don't you go first, and then Kaylee?
I will echo something Kaylee said earlier with making sure that you have somebody from each position or workflow or department on your team involved in the project from the get-go. I think then you do get a comprehensive look at what the entire practice needs. Nobody's getting left out. You're looking at every role in the practice that's going to be affected by this change. And they're your cheerleaders, they're your super users, and you're getting them on board. And it really is a collaboration amongst your team to make sure that you're doing everything you can to make it successful.
Great. Kaylee?
So I once heard this wise other athenaOne user who had said, fail fabulously. And I love it. And I think it encapsulates this whole process so well. No matter how much pre-work you're doing and what you're putting into the onboarding process, there is going to be something you didn't think of, or some wild patient experience or encounter hit you within those first couple of weeks, months, or even that first year of the go live process. And I think understanding that there will be pieces that you didn't think of, parts that are outside of your control, regardless of how much planning you did, and being able to adapt to the change is going to be huge and key for the success of your organization or your practice as you move forward. So don't get down on the times when things don't go exactly as you had planned, and just embrace it and know that honestly, for me, one of the most fun parts has been how do we keep tweaking and leveraging the system to make it even better than it was the day before.
I love that. That's a fantastic gem, especially for those of us who are great at failure. But every failure is actually a victory, right? Because you learn something in the process. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Kaylee, for your thoughtful responses. It really was a pleasure to have you join us today for our panel. And I am going to throw it back to you, Tim.
Thanks, Ken. And by the way, Kaylee, that wise person that you mentioned, I think I know who she is, also made the comment of don't put an old couch in a new house, which is advice I took, by the way, when we were remodeling our house. And what she was saying, obviously, was when you're moving to a new system, right? Don't try to put everything from before, the way you did it before. Look at the new opportunities, advantages you have with the new system that you can, put in a better couch potentially. So I love that. That always sticks in my head. And again, it was great advice last year when we were doing work on our house. So thank you both, and Ken as well, for taking the time to walk through this and enlighten everybody here on your experiences. I know you both, and Ken, goes for you as well too. I know I'd be more than happy to chat with any of our customers out there who'd like to learn a little bit more. So before we move on to the demo and wrap up this portion, of a couple things. First of all, you can see there's a QR code here on the screen. So if you so desire, you can go click on that, and you can pull up information from that on athenaOne if you like. And I'd also just like to sort of put a bow around everything that we just talked about up to this point. And just as a reminder, the differentiators about athenaOne is that we have truly this network, right? And we get smarter the more people we have on this network. Think of Waze, for those of you who use Waze as an app to get around. And I'm in the Boston area, so I use it all the time. And, the more people are driving around on Waze, it feeds information to the network that helps everybody get to where they want to go faster. And athenaOne works the same way. We deliver not only technology, but service and focused on outcomes. And I think you heard that through the conversation here today. And also you heard about it being a performance-driven partnership, right? Truly wanting to make sure that you're successful, and that's how we're successful as well, too. Okay, so as we start to transition here to Glenn, I'm going to give you a pop to one more slide. There we go. So if you have any questions, if you want to contact these folks that don't know how, if you want to get a hold of a salesperson, your CS, or anything like that, you can come to me as well, too. So please take a look at my email address here on the screen and jot that down. And I'm happy to help anybody with anything that they need. And then also for those who are dropping off, Nikki, if you could pop up the survey here as well, too. We love to learn as much as we can. We think of ourselves as teachers and learners here at Athena. So if you would take the opportunity to answer to the survey and provide us some feedback on what we did well and what we can improve, we're always looking to do that. Okay, I think I've covered everything that I need to cover there. And so now let's bring Glenn up on screen here, and we'll kick off the demo.
Hey, thanks so much, Tim, and welcome everybody. Glenn Pedersen here from athenaHealth. Just a quick introduction, Tim. I've been with Athena for about 10 years now, and spent the first 5 years on the athenaPractice platform, or Centricity, and then quickly moved over into athenaOne. I've been in the healthcare space for about 25 years now. Hard to believe it's been that long, and I live in Tampa, Florida, with my wife and 3 beautiful little girls, ages 9, well, actually 10 now, 14 and 17, all 3 little volleyballers. I'm also a United States Marine Corps veteran. So I think you're going to be staying on with me here, Tim. We're going to be doing a little role playing, correct?
Yes, Nikki, if you can bring me back up for a second. There we go. Awesome.
Great. And
yes,
I'm going to go
ahead
ahead
and be the patient today as well. This is great.
Yeah, and we're just going to take a minute and just demo our ambient solution, and I think that will kind of really demonstrate some of the work that Athena is doing. So I am on my athenaOne mobile app, and I just opened this. This is an app that kind of goes right to my schedule for the day, and you can see that I have it filtered down for my schedule of patients, and on each patient there is a start ambient button. So I'm going to go ahead and press the one for Tim is playing the role of Jason today. So let's go ahead and start the ambient. It does ask for consent. Tim, we're going to be I'm going to be using an AI note taker to kind of better do some documentation today. Is that okay with you?
That is perfectly fine. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Great. Well, let's get started here. So really great to see you again, Jason. I'm Dr. Medina, and how can we help you today?
Well, I've been having increased back pain after a recent injury when I slipped on a wet floor, and now I'm experiencing some numbness and some pain shooting down my right leg.
I see. I know you've been in the clinic here before with some back pain. Is this similar?
Yeah, but it's much worse than my usual back pain, and the leg pain is really sharp.
Oh, wow. Have you had any loss of bowel or bladder control? And what makes the pain worse? Have you tried anything at home?
I haven't any problem, no problems with using the bathroom. I did try some Norco and gabapentin I had left over at home. It really only helped a little, and changing positions makes it so much worse.
All right, well, let's examine you then. Okay, upon examining you, I found some tenderness in the lower back muscles and some limited range of motion. Your straight leg raise test, it was positive on the right, which supports nerve irritation. There's also some decreased sensation and slight weakness in your right leg. This fits with sciatica due to possible nerve compression.
So what does all that mean, and what can we do?
Yeah, great question, Jason. Well, let's go ahead and get an MRI scan of your lumbar spine to see if there's a herniated disc or other tissues compressing the nerve. Meanwhile, I'll prescribe you some naproxen, 500 milligrams twice daily for a week, taken with food to reduce the pain and swelling. Also, muscle relaxant, cyclobenzaprine, 5 milligrams at bedtime for 5 days for muscle spasms.
That sounds like a lot of stuff. What should I be watching for with these meds, and what if they don't help?
Yeah. Well, take the naproxen with food to protect your stomach, and be aware that it can affect your blood pressure. The cyclobenzaprine may cause drowsiness, so avoid driving until you know how it affects you. If nerve pain continues, we could add in that gabapentin to help.
All right. What if things don't get any better?
Well, if your symptoms don't get any better, then we can do an epidural injection to targeted relief. It's done under image guidance, and we inject steroids near the irritated nerves to decrease inflammation.
Geez, what does that involve?
Yeah, it's a common question. This procedure uses X-ray guidance to place a needle into the epidural space near the affected nerve. You'll be awake but numbed locally. The injection usually takes about 15 to 30 minutes, followed by observation.
Okay, is it safe?
Yes, it's generally very safe and carries small risks like infection or bleeding, but we monitor carefully and provide instructions after the procedure.
Well, in the meantime, what else should I be doing?
Yeah, so let's limit heavy lifting, twisting, and prolonged sittings. You can use heat and cold at home as needed. Once your back is better controlled, we'll send you out to physical therapy for exercises to strengthen the back and core.
All right, and then when should I be coming back to see you?
Yeah, let's plan for a follow-up in 1 week to review our MRI and progress. Contact us sooner if your symptoms worsen, especially if the leg weakness or bladder issues continue.
All right, thanks, Doc.
No problem. Thank you very much. And I can go ahead and pause this and go ahead and move out of the exam room and then go ahead and dictate my exam. So I'm going to go ahead and resume this, being out of the room. Back examination reveals no visible deformities, swelling, or skin changes over lumbar area, tenderness over right lumbar paraspinal muscles and sacroiliac joint region, lumbar flexion and extension reduced secondary to pain, limited lateral bending on the right, straight leg raise test was positive at 40 degrees, provoking radiating pain down the right leg on the right side. Faber test was negative bilaterally, decreased sensation to light touch over right L5 dermatome, slight weakness to right ankle dorsiflexion, grade 4 out of 5, plantar reflexes symmetrical 2+, ankle reflexes diminished on the right side, mild antalgic gait favoring right side noted. Now, all I do is I can go ahead and preview this for summary at this particular point, or I can go ahead and send this to the chart. This usually takes about 90 seconds in my demo environment. That's just because it has to go across a couple of different firewalls, but generally about 30 seconds within a live environment. And that will put all of the information into its prospective places. As you'll see in a minute, the HPI goes into the HPI section, the physical exam goes into the physical exam section, and those different sections will be placed in the proper area. So here it is, it's adding to the chart. It's been successful. And now we can look at what we produced with that. So there's my HPI that's been put in there based on the conversation that Tim and I had. My review of systems came in there, as well as my physical exam that I dictated after the patient left the room. And I can go ahead and make some other notes in here. In the athenaOne app, I have lots of different functionality, but I really wanted to spend most of our time today over in athenaOne. So let's go ahead and we'll move into, I'm going to go ahead and take down this reflector app here, and we'll go ahead and jump into athenaOne. There's some things that I wanted to review today. I want to thank Kaylee, Megan, and Ken for that great discussion. It really stimulated some of my thought, and I wanted to jump into some of maybe even these pre-visit workflows. I pulled just generated really quickly a care gap work list based on And these are really some nursing workflows. I could be a care coordinator or nursing quality manager. I want to see what the patients that are coming in the upcoming days for a particular provider are due for, and it gives me the ability to jump right in there and go ahead and prep the patient's chart. As you'll see in just a minute, I can prep patients' charts before patients arrive at the clinic. I document in there, it puts a little blue indicator letting me know that the work has been done with the chart before the patient has been checked into the clinic. I can do that. I can generate it for any period over time, and just really helps me to close those different gaps of care. The other thing that I'd like to call out here, as far as something that was called out during the previous discussion, was kind of that group call campaign. As a quality manager, I can certainly start to filter down, and I'll say, I want to look for all of our patients that are due for influenza vaccine coming up for Dr. Medina. And when I run this report, athenaOne will quickly generate all of the outstanding patients that have not satisfied that, and then I can send out that group call campaign. Athena will alert those patients that they're due for some kind of test, and let's go ahead and contact the clinic. Let's move over. The last thing I wanted to show before we move into athenaOne, into the charting portion of the demo here, was the reporting library. And this was something that was called out heavily by Kaylee and Megan. And the Athena has hundreds of pre-built reports in our best practice reporting library. They are broken out into the different sections, from whether they're clinical reports or even something as simple as a front desk time of service collections report. I heard that during the discussion today. I can run reports at any time within Athena, but I can also schedule reports to be ran on any daily, weekly, or monthly cadence. I can also set that up to be sent out automatically to different recipients, and those are other users within our practice. And that's what will send out those reports and generate them automatically to your inbox. There is the report builder, which I did hear earlier, and this is, you don't have to be an HTML coder or a Crystal report writer to write reports in athenaOne. You simply select the type of report that you would like to generate, select the display columns, the filters. You can preview and schedule the report as well as view those results. But as far as automation and efficiency goes, let's jump over into athenaOne. And I've jumped over here to the home-based work page. We are a truly cloud-based solution, so there are never any servers in the back closet that need to be upgraded or maintained. Just real-time access, essentially whenever and wherever you need it. All you need is a computer, internet, or the athenaOne mobile application on your mobile device. But I logged into the clinical version of the home-based work page. And in the middle of the screen, I can see the schedule today, which is a little bit more of a tracking board for Dr. Medina. The other thing that I did hear earlier that I should call out is Athena is really great on tasking. And on the left-hand side, you'll see the provider's task list. And I am logged in as Dr. Medina today. And this is an exception-based workflow. So the items in this work list directly need my intervention as either routing along to another staff member or provider. Also, it could be just signing off that into the chart or acknowledging that I've reviewed it. One of the things I'd like to call out, the Athena is a permission role-based system, and this is something that we always wanted in athenaPractice, is that every user gets an individual username, every provider gets an individual staff inbox. So if you have multiple nurses or staff members that work under provider, they can log into, with the proper permission, into just a single staff inbox. So we send tasks to a single role rather than an individual person, because if that person's out, obviously the work wouldn't get accomplished. And then we set up the practice roles, right? So medical records, referral coordinator, surgical coordinator, and then we can send tasks to those individual roles. That is something unique to athenaOne. I figured I would call that out. And then as a provider, I know these are the tasks that need to be completed during the day. I do see an urgent task at the top of the list from the staff. Patient is called in today and they're having some increased UTI symptoms. They want to know what they should do. Let's go ahead, and I'm just going to send the message back over to the sender and put in a dot phrase. I'd like the patient to come in for a call, to come in for an appointment today. Let's go ahead and save that, and it moves off of my task list and routes over to my staff. They can call the patient in, and also drops off this task list. Right from this list here, I can see how many of the patients are in the office getting ready to be seen. Encounters are unsigned notes. So as was mentioned earlier, those tasks are automatically routing into the proper inboxes depending on my role within the practice. Patient cases are portal messages or phone notes. Sometimes we don't like direct portal messages to go directly to the provider. Let's reroute those to a triage nurse or a staff member through something called a task assignment override. That's where we reroute those documents against what the best practice rules. So we don't want the provider to be kind of bogged down with too many patient cases. We'll send those over to some staff members to get handled. Now, orders, RX, and auth filter into this area. I can see prescription refills that come in from the pharmacy. There's some authorization management. The one thing I'd like to call out that's unique about athenaOne is that we have closed loop order management. Now, no orders are queued up in this section. They're queued up in the patient's chart, which you'll see in a second. But I can quickly queue up, and when I queue up an order, lab, imaging, or referral, there is a default alarm in there. That means Athena is expecting to receive those results back. If we do not receive them back within the allotted time frame, they will drop into the needs follow-up bucket down here at the bottom for the staff. So we do see all of your orders completely through the closed loop ordering process. And when labs and imaging come back into Athena, they come into this labs and imaging work list. I can see what's critical, what's abnormal. It gives me the ability to jump into any of these labs, review the results. I can track and trend analytes and even graph them against medication management. So that's a little bit about some of the inbox information here that I can review. But remember, we have some patients that are waiting to be seen. And Jake Medlock's waiting to be seen. He's here for some diabetes, some hypertension, and some hyperlipidemia. There is a briefing page where I get a one-stop shop of everything that's going on with the patient in a 360-degree view. The left-hand side is some historical information. I do see there's some tracking and trending of their vital signs, as well as this patient has a diagnosis gap, that there's some other diagnoses coming in from the payer when this patient saw other providers, and we can go ahead and add those. So I do have the ability to add those from the chart right here. I also can see my note from the last time I saw the patient, as well as the recent activity, where Athena collates in a time-based sequence all of the interactions with the chart. As I move into the exam, I'll close the problems area, and this is where I can review what the staff put in during the intake stage and quickly move through my different sections. There's the ability, expediters, to move information forward from previous visits, or turn on the athenaOne voice to dictation app. Information flows forward that's been documented by the staff, called out in red, as well as I can pull forward information from previous visits. I do see this patient indicates that they want some skin tags removed from their neck today, so let's go ahead and get those removed. And these are mapped into the super bill. So when myself or the staff documents in this section, there's no chance that somebody forgets to add it to the super bill. In the assessment and plan section, the patient does indicate and lets me know they need a refill of their lisinopril. So let's go ahead, and we do have one-touch refills by just hitting the blue arrow from the patient's med list. That is now refilled, but through some of that automation and machine learning and AI, Athena is tracking my my prescribing and ordering behavior. So let's go ahead and also prescribe this patient a statin for their hyperlipidemia. I'll quickly add the quantity in there, but we do have Hippocrates embedded right into the workflow, as well as the pharmacy has brought it in from the patient intake section, as well as interaction checking, and it lets me know that this is covered on the on this patient's formulary. And then I'm pretty much done. I can sign off my orders for today and be done with the note. And that's as easy as it is to document a visit. So I know we're a little bit coming up on time. I did want to take a pause, Tim, and not go over. This was meant to be just a highlight to really get everybody's interest to go ahead and schedule a demo for today, so we can get into some of those workflows. So
yeah, we still have a few. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to say, we still have a few folks on. And so if there's a couple more things you want to show, I'd say take another 5 minutes for sure.
Sure.
If you think you can, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool.
The other thing that I'd like to show is in the assessment and plan section, we do have return to office orders. So this is where Athena actually tracks compliance of patient care for you. So let's say I want this patient to come back in 3 months for a follow-up visit. Let's go ahead. This is immediately available at the checkout desk, so there's no confusion when they would like the patient to come back for a follow-up visit. It also creates an appointment tickler, because if you asked me to go ahead and schedule an appointment today at checkout, I would say, well, I travel for Athena. I don't know if I'll be in town. Can you just call me when the time gets closer? You know that sometimes translates to a missed opportunity. Well, Athena tracks that and actually surfaces in a work list for the staff. The last section is the sign-off, where athenaOne briefly summarizes what I documented today. And because there were some other providers within this patient's care team, we queued up some consult letters that will automatically be sent out. This is just a brief consult that be sent over to some other providers in this patient's care team. They were queued up automatically, which really leads us into the last section, which is the integrated billing slip. And I know that Megan and Kaylee talked about provider efficiency, but everything is mapped over, right? So the appointment summary details come over from check-in. The diagnoses flow over from the assessment and plan. And down below, the only thing that really needs to be put in by the provider is if they did some level of E&M on the patient today, 99213, 214. There is an embedded third-party E&M coder that will give some coding advice based on the 2021 guidelines, so amount of time spent with the patient or complexity of the decision-making. Everything else is mapped in the background. So we ensure that everything is captured within Athena. So that's about it of the things that I was planning on going over today, Tim. I don't know if there's any questions. If not, we'll turn it back to you.
Oh, that's great. That's perfect. Again, this was, folks, this was meant to be really a high level, non-specialty specific or anything like that presentation, really just to give you an idea of some of the things that are really special about athenaOne and really, quite frankly, aren't available in athenaPractice. I see I got one question, but the person who asked it just dropped, so I'm going to follow up with them directly afterwards. And just to finish a couple things, first of all, a little bit of a humble brag here, I guess, to look at all the different things that we have done here, the awards and whatnot we've won. But really the most important one to me to point out to all of you is that one on the top left class I'm sure everybody's familiar with. And, we won the overall independent physician practice suite, best in class for the last 2 years. That's saying something. That's number one out of everybody, right? So that's our customers saying that we were the best in the overall independent physician practice set. So that's pretty neat. So let's finish with just a couple of things here. Again, I want to thank everyone for coming. Here's my email address again, if you want that and you want to be able to reach out to me to ask any questions, follow up on anything you wanted from today. And then here's our survey popping up again as well too. So if you haven't had a chance to do that, we'd love for you to do that. But last, but most important, and as I finished, thank you all for being customers. Thank you all for taking the time to be with us here today. Look forward to continuing the conversation about your possible move from athenaPractice to athenaOne. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day and a great evening. Take care.